Hi there, my name is Dean Murphy. I'm a Principal Solution Consultant at AVP Consultancy. What I'd like to do is spend a little bit of time with you just doing an introduction to automation, demystifying and just doing a level set about what we mean by automation. What can it do? How do we identify what are good candidates for automation? What some of the benefits could be and what kind of improvements can we expect? When I start this presentation, I usually like to start off with a fun video that has a look at how we got to the position we're in with work today. It's a video created by a company called UiPath.
This is the story of work. It started a long time ago, on a Monday, which was handy. For as long as history itself, the humans needed to work. They wanted to work, to grow things and create things and build things, to see what they were capable of, to stand at day's end and say, "I did that," which felt pretty good. So they worked more, built more, and created more, and traveled to far-off places. And then someone suggested submitting expense reports for those far-off places. His name was Glenn, and he was well, you know. Anyway, the people kept getting better at work. They built better tools to work more efficiently. They built amazing machines to work faster. They built computers to work smarter. But still, they couldn't do enough work. Because during all that work to do more work, they had created work, and not the good kind. Not the let's sit around and come up with ideas kind. Not the I can't wait to get to work so I can jump into a new project kind. The unpleasant kind. The drudge and data and admin and the doggone expense reports. So the humans had to work more at work they didn't like. That made them robotic. That didn't inspire. They had to postpone vacations. They had to miss family dinners. They were miffed. And then something happened. Someone had a really amazing idea. They came into work and said, "Stop working and start working." The humans thought she might have had wine at lunch, so she showed them a way to put the fun back into work, to waste less time doing the things they hated, to make more efficient the big tasks, to stop making the humans act like robots and start teaching the robots to learn the humans. Not to replace people, but to free them. Even Glenn. Robots that learn you. Imagine the potential, like starting over, to help us remember again that work only really works when we're happy at it.
So there we are, a fun look at how we got to where we are with work today. Some of you may have heard of an acronym, RPA, which actually stands for Robotic Process Automation. It's an acronym that I personally don't like, and part of that is because it's got the word robot in there. And without a session like this, what we'll often have is a mental image of something coming out of Hollywood, maybe Terminator or Skynet. Or it may be some people have a mental image of a mechanical arm sitting on their desk, hitting their keyboard and mouse. And I thought, well, what else could this mean? Well, without it, we're performing repetitive people activities. But what if you could turn that into reliable people augmentation so that we end up repeating pleasant actions? My preference as to what we mean by RPA. So what can it do? Well, today, if you can click it with your mouse, if you can type it on your keyboard, if you can copy and paste it quite often between applications, and often when I go into an office these days, if I see a desk with two monitors, I know there's probably a lot of opportunity for automation in there. If we can scrape it, if we're pulling information from a web page and having to do something with our data, if we do something with Excel, and I've yet to see a business that doesn't use Excel in some of its business processes. If we can OCR it, or optical character recognition. So I apologize for the acronym there, but if I'd expanded it, it would have spoiled the look of my slides. So essentially taking a paper document, scanning it, and then being able to digitize the information on there so we can then start to extract the information and start to deal with it. Or email it. And the list is more exhaustive than this. So today, if we can do those things today, then chances are we can automate it. So to automate something, what makes a good candidate? Well, is it highly repetitive? Are you doing this on a regular basis? If it's something you spend 1 hour a month doing, that's probably not a good candidate. But if you're spending several hours a day, 5 days a week doing it, that's probably a good candidate. That it's mundane. If you're working from home, the last thing you want to do is come downstairs on a Monday morning and do that job, or at the end of your commute. That it's rules-based. If you can specify, when I see this type of activity, I follow this path. If I see another type of activity, I'll follow a different path. As long as you can specify what those business rules are, again, that helps us with a good candidate. But it's a stable process. You're not planning to change this process in the next 3 or 6 months. You've got stable systems. You're not planning to change these systems. Now, there are some exceptions to this, because automation can be used for things like data cleansing and data migration. It can also be used for testing your to-be processes in your new systems. So there are some exceptions to that. But in the main, when we're looking at things like intelligent automation of business processes, then really we want stable processes and stable systems. And that it impacts many users. So if we can say yes to all or most of those, chances are we've identified what we call the low-hanging fruits. So if we start to automate some of those good candidates, what kind of improvements can we expect? Well, we can improve the customer experience. So if we're doing things faster and more reliably and more accurately, chances are that's going to translate into a better customer experience. Whether that's our internal customers, our external customers who may be consumers, they may be patients, they may be students, they may be citizens, whoever they are. And what's interesting now is that we're starting to enter an era where the experiences we have outside of our industry influence the level of expectation we have in other industries. So if we buy from online retailers and we have a very good experience, then if we're engaging with a council, for example, wouldn't it be great if we had a similar experience, even though those two organizations have nothing to do with each other? So the customer experience is not necessarily dictated by the service that you and your competitors provide, but also by the experience that your customer has across their entire ecosystem. Improve the employee experience. So if you make your employees more satisfied, freeing them up to do higher value activities, do the more interesting work rather than just use their fingers on the mouse and keyboard, chances are it's going to help with things like staff retention and staff acquisition. And in fact, we're starting to see now people coming into the workplace expecting automation to be there, because automation in many cases is on the university curriculum. And so looking for organizations that are already automating their processes will make you a more attractive employer for people just entering the job market. We can help with compliance. The digital worker or the robot is going to do things in a consistent and reliable way. It's not going to make a mistake. It's not going to take the wrong data from the wrong row in the spreadsheet. And so if we're getting a greater degree of compliance, we're also probably going to get a higher degree of quality. If we're doing things in a more compliant way with a higher degree of quality, that's how we can translate into a better customer experience. We can accelerate time to value. Now, a simple automation could be developed in a matter of weeks. A more complex automation, maybe 6-8 weeks. And maybe something more complex, maybe a couple of months. But here we're not talking about traditional IT transformation projects that take 6, 12, 9, 18 months or longer. Really, with the right use cases, we can develop these things and implement them very, very quickly. We can also help with digital agility. Now, this may sound like consulting buzzword bingo, but let me explain what I mean by this. In some organisations, systems just don't talk to each other. There's no interface between them, nothing that allows them to communicate. Because automation emulates human behaviour at the user interface, automation can now become the digital glue between those systems, allowing them now to be connected and communicate and interact. When we do that, that means we can start to consider new services and new products to our customers that we may not be able to consider before, because we're now a little more agile in how we start to link our systems together and therefore be able to execute end-to-end processes. So hopefully I've justified why I specified digital agility as one of the improvements. So if we make these improvements, what kind of benefits can we expect? Well, a digital worker will run 10 times or more faster than a human. Of course, if the application is slow for us, it's going to be slow for the digital worker as well. But in many cases, the digital worker isn't going to think, well, this application is slow today, I'm going to go off and check my email or check my instant messaging. It's not. It's going to sit there. As soon as the user interface is ready for it, it's going to move on. So it's not going to have those challenges and those distractions that we often get as human workers. It's going to deal with a high degree of accuracy. It's not going to get interrupted. It's not going to get phone calls. It's not going to get messages. It's all those distractions we have in the workplace, the digital worker doesn't have. It's just focused on that job that's in front of it. Because of that, it doesn't have those accuracy issues that many of us face, myself included. We can deliver rapid return on investment, or ROI. In many cases, return on investment can be measured in months, and with the right use cases, sometimes weeks, particularly with those high volume, mundane, repetitive tasks that we talked about earlier. It's non-intrusive. We don't require you to go and change your applications or be on a certain version of our application or install certain plugins. So your IT team are going to be very happy. What it also means is because we're emulating human behavior through the user interface, chances are if you can do it, we can automate it. We can deliver quick implementations. As I mentioned, with a simple use case, we're probably talking about a week or so. With a more complex use case, maybe 3 or 4 weeks. Again, this will all come down to a bit more detailed analysis of your processes and your systems, and we'll work with you to come up with an estimate of what the cost would be to implement an automation. But what we're really looking for there is, as long as the cost to automate is lower than the cost to do it manually, chances are we've got a business case we can start to deliver against. We can also help with backlog reduction. This is quite often a key use case for many organisations. And organisations like the Department of Work and Pensions and Northumbrian Water and many others, banks, retailers, travel organisations, all have use cases where backlog reduction and backlog mitigation is a key use case. So hopefully that was useful. A level set around what do we mean by automation and how do we identify some good candidates and what kind of improvements and benefits can we expect to see.